This raw footage is from the horrific mass murder that would famously be known as the Jonestown Massacre. Tracy Parks, at just 12 years old, had never felt such danger. Gunshots echoed at the Guyana airstrip as she, her older sister Brenda, and 3 other children ran into the depths of one of the most dangerous Amazonian jungle in Guyana. Towering trees and dense undergrowth engulfed them, while hunger and thirst chewed at their strength. It was Jim Jones' fear that pushed them forward, purely driven by the instinct to survive, even as the shadows of jaguars and snakes lurked. As night fell, fatigue settled in, and they sought refuge high in a tree. The distant sound of gunshots reminded them that they were hunted. Yet they kept running for 2 days without food and water. On the 3rd day, they heard an out-of-place hum, a generator. Following the sound, they found armed men patrolling along a river. Exhausted, they cautiously approached them. To their relief, the armed men were not Jim Jones' goons, but the police who had been on a search and rescue mission. Their family reunion stirred a complex mix of emotions: relief, joy, and profound sadness. Tracy couldn't shake the loss of her mother, who lost her life to the same gunshots Tracy ran from. It was a wound from Jonestown that would never fully heal. But what exactly was Jonestown? Hello and welcome to the Mystique channel, where we will explore the tragedy of Jonestown, also known as the People's Temple. The impact of Jonestown reached far beyond the jungle. It was the result of a series of events that started years ago when Jim Jones established the People's Temple. Back in 1966, in the peaceful town of Redwood Valley, California, Gerald Parks and his loving family had made their new home. Concerns related to the Cold War and the looming fear of nuclear disaster had led Gerald and Patricia to leave Ohio. They were accompanied by their 3 children, Dale, Brenda, and their 6-week-old baby, Tracy. They were part of a group who had followed Reverend Jim Jones to California, lured by the hope that Redwood Valley would offer a secure haven for their family and an ideal place to raise young Tracy. Reverend Jones, charismatic and convincing, had won over their hearts and minds, offering the prospect of a brighter future. 7 years later, in 1973, Jim Jones announced he is building a perfect city in Guyana, South America. This promised land was later infamously known as Jonestown. The Parks family relocated to Jonestown. On the outside, everything was wonderful, but as soon as they arrived, they noticed armed guards. They were immediately stripped off their belongings, and the whole family was separated. Children were placed in the kids' camps. Adults in their separate camp and senior citizens of Jonestown were kept separately. Jones referred to his congregation as the People's Temple, and it drew a wide range of followers. People from all walks of life sought refuge within its walls, attracted by Jones's magnetic charisma and his apparent dedication to social justice causes. His message of equality, inclusivity, and communal living struck a chord with many. However, the reality inside Jonestown was very different. Members had to endure barbaric punishments, and everyone, including the minors, could get lashed 100 times in front of the whole congregation.
I had to work in the rice fields, and you had to use a big machete or the big rake that had the knife at the bottom, and you had to cut the grass down.
One day, she went to the infirmary with an earache.
And they looked in there and pulled out a cockroach the size of half my thumb, huge.
Tracy Parks saw no future in Jonestown.
I knew that in the first month there, that I'm stuck here and that I'm most likely gonna die here.
Truth started leaking out of the Jonestown. As time went on, the once idyllic image of the People's Temple began to show signs of strain. On August 1st, 1977, an expose in New West magazine cast a shadow over the People's Temple, bringing to light allegations of abuse and misconduct within the community. Since 1976, Jim Jones and his inner circle had been quietly stocking up a deadly supply of cyanide, preparing for the horrific mass murder in case they had a face-off with CIA or FBI. Jim Jones started preaching suicide and glorified sacrifice of children in case the authorities caught them.
At some point, you will sacrifice your children. How old is your child?
11.
We fight at 11. Unless it came to an overwhelming invasion, then we would gently put them to sleep, which we have, but they never know what had hit them. We already...
That is when Gerald Parks knew. He had to get out of there. On November 17, 1978, Jones informed his supporters about Senator Ryan's upcoming visit, instructing them to maintain an appearance of calm and contentment.
Diane, who worked in the pharmacy, had made, this is so ironic, a cocktail of Valium and Kool-Aid for the children.
The little ones were drugged to maintain a sense of false happiness. However, Tracy couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as she listened to Ryan's optimistic remarks, fear gnawing at her that help might never arrive.
Howdy. So we are at least friends in that extent. I'm very glad to be here. This is a congressional inquiry. I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about questions that have been raised about your operation here. And I can tell you right now that from the few conversations I've had with some of the folks here already this evening, that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened in their whole life.
The following morning, November 18th, desperation set in. Gerald and his mother, Edith, bravely approached Senator Ryan, very openly telling him they were being held prisoner and they needed to escape the nightmarish grip of Jonestown.
Well, we were, all of a sudden, we had a whole lot of people at the last minute who wanted to go. Suddenly rushed forward and said, we want to leave. We knew about two as early as last night. We knew about a family this morning that said, we got to go. And you have to understand there's a high degree of agitation on the part of those who want to go, and they were really very much in fear. And so we made arrangements for them, and of course the transportation is extremely limited and very difficult. So we had to begin planning. And of course, most of these people, if they come out, will not have enough food and don't have clothing, a place to stay.
A reporter can be seen questioning young Tracy.
Your wish to go? To go back home. And where's home?
Their try at freedom encouraged several other temple members to follow suit, and this sudden act of defiance triggered a tense showdown with Jones himself. Chaos ensued as those defecting loaded their belongings onto a tractor destined for the airstrip. The journey ahead was a harrowing 6-mile trek, marked by an oppressive silence and anxiety that weighed heavily on all involved. Upon reaching the Port Kaituma landing strip with palpable tension, a sense of impending doom. Something tragic happened. As the 33 individuals readied themselves to board 2 separate planes, dividing the Parks family. The ever-present camera rolled and preserved this break for freedom. Gerald Parks approached one of the awaiting planes, his sense of anticipation mixed with a lingering dread. Tracy Parks, in the striped shirt, can be seen walking towards a plane that would fly them to freedom. A truck carrying armed men arrived on the dirt road just behind them. In an instant, the situation spiraled as these gunmen opened fire, shattering any facade of hope. Gerald Parks recalls the horrific shootout.
shot the reporters on the ground, the congressman.
Patricia Parks, Tracy's mother, lost her life in the shootout, along with 4 others, including reporter Don Harris, Senator Ryan, and cameraman Bob Brown.
Leo Ryan ducked behind a wheel, but was killed. The only U.S. congressman ever assassinated while in office. These are photos never seen publicly until now. Her daughter Tracy, back then.
I didn't see her get shot, but I saw her brains in the plane, and I saw her laying out on the ground.
Countless others suffered severe injuries, while Tracy and her brother Dale found themselves on the other plane, leaving Gerald in the dark as to whether they made it out alive. Back in Jonestown, Jones finally carried out his diabolical plan. A cocktail mixed with cyanide was given to all the members, including children, resulting in the mass deaths of more than 900 people, famously known as the Jonestown Massacre. For Tracy Parks, who had spent her entire life within the confines of the People's Temple, the unimaginable tragedy of Jonestown would cause severe PTSD at the age of 12. For many survivors, the horrors of Jonestown haunted them in various ways, sometimes leading to violence. Several tragic incidents involving survivors occurred in the years following the massacre, including shootings and domestic disputes. Tracy Parks, however, remained strong and committed to honoring her mother's memory, returning to the Jonestown airstrip 30 years later to pay her respects. Tracy's father, Gerald, dedicated his life to his family, becoming a great-grandfather and always putting his loved ones first. He passed away on November 1st, 2022. Tracy shares her story to ensure that the past is not forgotten, determined not to let Jim Jones win. The aftermath of such a profound tragedy leaves a lasting impact, either leading to personal struggles or inspiring resilience. Tracy chose the path of resilience, driven by her desire to make her mother proud, and so she lives strong,